Hey guys, welcome back to Gear Forwards. My name's Paul, and today we're taking a look at this little guy. This is the Wuben G1, a compact little keychain or zipper pull style light. So let's jump on in and get some size comparisons right off of the bat. Up top we have a 91mm Swiss Army knife, and down below we have a probably more size relevant 58mm. You can see it's just going to poke just above the front there. And then we have a AA and a AAA. Again, this is not that much longer than both, and in terms of thickness, we're right there as well. And probably the most relevant comparison for how I'm going to be handling this review is this. This is the Nitecore Tube. This is the original USB, micro USB version. As you can see, this is a decent bit longer, and overall similar in thickness, but we do have this flared end on the G1 that does just make it a bit thicker. So let's quickly go through the brightness, the UI, and then we'll jump into the main comparison, positives, negatives, that kind of thing. So in terms of UI, this is just going to be a very simple press once, turns on, press and hold, change mode. It does have mode memory for whichever was the last mode on. The lowest mode is 5 lumens, the highest mode is 40 lumens. And there is literally no reflector involved here. There's no lens. This is basically just an exposed LED. Now this does also mean that you get a lot of spill either side, which means that it can help light your feet as you walk instead of just lighting in front of you. That can be quite nice. And it's very relevant in my mind to the Nitecore Tube in a couple of ways. Firstly, the Nitecore Tube is in its heart primarily a 2-mode light, 5 and 45 lumens. It has a very similar single button USB-C rechargeable, well, the new version is USB-C rechargeable nature, and they are comparable in price. I believe I paid about £9 for the Wuben G1. I believe it's about $10 normally, and that is roughly online with what the Nitecore Tube has always been. I'm not sure if the price is that much different nowadays. And the Nitecore Tube has been, for those that aren't aware, it was a rock star of the budget EDC world for a long time. It's incredibly compact, very light, and it offered you a rechargeable LED flashlight in a time where, you know, rechargeable keychain lights were either not super common, or at the very least they were more expensive or a little harder to get. So this came in and offered you a great version to keep on your keys or just use as a dedicated little light. And the reason I picked up the G1 is because it reminded me so much of the Nitecore Tube that I was wondering if we had somewhat of a spiritual successor on our hands. Now obviously in terms of form factor, it's longer, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it gives you more to actually grip onto to use the light. So that's not really a bad thing in my opinion, and if anything it just looks more like a zip pull. You could legitimately replace the zip pull on like your jacket or something with this and just have a more functional version. Or otherwise it does fit well on keys. This is just a bit shorter than a standard house key, so it does fit in very well there. And of course, for convenience sake, we do have USB-C charging. Again, this is the older micro USB on the tube here. You can see that port there. But we have USB-C on the G1, as I believe on the updated tube as well. And this is where things get interesting. See, we have a little flap protecting it, and then here is your USB-C port. Now, can anyone tell me what's like interesting, shall we say, about this USB-C port? No? How about if I gave you a different perspective? Yeah, the internal portion of the port is actually protruding, which I think they've done to try and make this area a little bit thinner, because you do have the port on the other side of the button. And then the flap itself is kind of recessed in the middle to seat around it. Now, oh boy, it's interesting, it's innovative in a way, and I like that they did something different. However, the main piece of the charging port protruding from the body of the port is not a good idea. It is just going to make it more liable to get damaged, especially since this tiny little flap has a good chance of coming off at some point, and this is actually, besides being waterproofing, this is actually acting as physical protection for the port in a way that typically rubber covers like this don't. That is the main weird thing about this light, and the only real thing that I don't like about it. But again, for the price, if it breaks, it's not really that big a deal, and it might even be covered over Wuben's warranty, so, you know, it's not all negatives. And again, it is otherwise a really compelling light. This is, you know, $10 or less, maybe even less if you use the code in the link down in the description below. And it's compelling. Now, is it actually a compelling successor to the Nitecore Tube? I think it's passable. I think that if you can get a Nitecore Tube still, and I haven't checked availability, you might still be able to, you might not. But if you have a Nitecore Tube, or you can still get a Nitecore Tube for a reasonable price, I'd say get the tube, simply because, port weirdness aside, the UI is just superior. So with the G1, as we've already gone through, like, it's literally just on, change mode, off. That's the entire UI. It's nice, simple, mode memory for whatever you want, great. But the UI on the tube was just so much more refined and useful. You know, if you just press it once, you're going to get low. If you double press it, you go straight into the high mode, right? But you also had the press and hold to get the momentary on, which is something that I'm really a fan of. And when it's on, if you press and held it, you got this stepless ramping adjustment. So you actually didn't have just 5 and 45 lumens, you had potentially a whole great degree of change in between as well. Now, I'm not entirely sure how things are with UIs legally in the flashlight world. I don't know if there's something that can be trademarked. I wouldn't have really thought so, because there are a lot of UIs that are very similar, and maybe they just wanted to differentiate the product, or maybe they think that this is genuinely the better option. However, if this UI was in this body, then even with the port, I could say that this would be a great spiritual successor. As it is, it's an okay alternative. It's a light that I can certainly recommend if you're looking for just a cheap little keychain light to, you know, give to a kid, throw in some keys or whatever. But it doesn't quite hold up to the legacy of the Nitecore Tube. I'm a little disappointed by that, but it's still a solid light, and I can still recommend it if you're looking forward to it and you don't want to, or you can't get a Nitecore Tube. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think of the Wuben G1 down in the comments below. Again, there is a link and a coupon code down in the description should you want to pick one up for yourself. And whilst you're down there, I'd greatly appreciate if you hit that like and subscribe button. It does help the channel out. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please consider a Patreon, YouTube membership, or a coffee donation. But that's it. I've been Paul, and I will see you, in the next video.